Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends, and welcome to another Eve Frontier live stream. I am, of course, your host, CCP Jötunn. Thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure to have all of you here. We are once again live on CCP TV. Exciting to be out here, excited to be public, excited to be doing this thing. It's been a wild day. Yes, we have so many faces, Snapco, on the screen currently, and let's go through them quickly. I'm going to do some introductions. I'm going to let one person introduce another person. I rarely ever give up that much control, but today, special day, we're going to do it. Of course, I am CCP Jötunn, community developer for Eve Frontier. Joining us, we have CCP Goodfella, game director for Eve Frontier, and on the far right of your screen, we have the Scottish legend himself, CCP Overload, product manager for Eve Frontier, and another new face. CCP Goodfella, could you please introduce our third guest today?
Yeah. So should I just do that, or should I also just talk about why we are here? Overall?
You can do both. It's fine. Yeah.
Very deep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Why we are here? Yes. Okay. So I have come down with the plague. I apologize for my voice. The frontier is not only filled with deadly moon eaters, but also some plagues that I've picked up. But we're now here at the dawn of a new cycle on the frontier. For those tuning in, this is a great time to start your adventure on the frontier, because it's equal footing ground for everybody. But why we are here today is that we are here to discuss the monetary framework of eFrontier. As people who have been following us know, we've put significant effort into creating a universe that is grounded in science. We have two astrophysicists on the team, and we really want to put good effort into the foundational layer, which is the world itself and the stories that emerge there. What will emerge from a universe filled with people trying to destroy each other is an economy. To have a robust economy for decades to come, we need a strong monetary framework. And in order to do that, we also need to have good talent on the team, just like we do when creating a universe. So joining us on the eFrontier team is CCP Kalirha, CCP Money is just the CCP Coin.
Yeah, coin.
He comes from the Central Bank of Iceland, has been with us now since December, and has been working hard on just creating something now to present to the players.
Hell yeah.
And eFrontier, bit of a spiel here. eFrontier has a new update today, an economic update which is based on this new monetary framework. And it is super important for us to discuss this with everybody, because also of the EVE token and how that will flow through the economy. We really need the people that play Frontier to understand this, and why it is important that this is the fuel of death and destruction for players for the future.
Hell yeah.
End of spiel.
Good spiel. CCP Kalirha, we were just talking before we came on, before we went live. You probably were not expecting to be trotted out here so quickly to dance around on the monkey stage with the rest of us. What's it been like your first couple months here at CCP as the new director of economy for eFrontier?
It's actually head of economy.
Oh, head of economy. Head of. Oh, what a distinction! My God.
No, because it's important for the lore of the nickname.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, but so it's been it's very challenging. It's been a lot of new things to learn. Actually, my fiancée has been complaining that I have been leaving all the cupboards open, and she has quite a few bruises on her head because I'm just deep in thought walking around my apartment. So, but it's been very enjoyable and exciting.
Thank you so much, chat, for trying to come up with as many terrible puns as you can to celebrate the arrival of our very good friend CCP Kalirha. But yeah, so this is what this is, friends. Today we're going to be talking about the economy of eFrontier. So just as a preface to build off of what CCP Goodfella said just a moment ago, today is a big day for us. We're doing this is our 2.0 release of our Founder Access period. If you're not familiar with what Founder Access is, we got a whole website. You can go check it out, efrontier.com/Founder Access. I'm not going to get into the details. If you're here, chances are you probably know what's going on. If you don't know, use the power of reading. Take my word for it. It'll guide you through life. But we have a big expansion today. The big expansion today focusing on new economic systems, new economic updates to Frontier. Obviously, the economy of Frontier, just like the economy of EVE Online, is a pivotal kind of central. It's important. If this thing doesn't work, the whole thing doesn't work. And we want to make sure that it's good. We want to make sure that it is fair and balanced, and that people feel comfortable. We are asking people to engage with the economy, asking people to put, in some cases, real money into the economy, and we want people to be assured, we want people to be confident, and that is what this stream is. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. That's what this Founder Access period is all about, making sure that we're transparent with you guys, especially with our founders. Shout out to founders. But just, opening up that line of communication so that you guys feel comfortable playing the game. We're comfortable interacting with you guys. There's a good, healthy flow of information, just like this. That's how that works. That hand gesture, exactly. So I am going to pass this off now to CCP Kalirha. We have a presentation. We're going to do the presentation. After the presentation, we've got some questions, some that were submitted by our founders. So again, shout out founders. And we're going to go through those. So without any further ado, CCP Kalirha, take it away.
Thank you, Ben. Jötunn, So I'm going to try to keep this very high level. Not going to go into a lot of details. There's going to be no models. There's going to be no equations. But I'm going to start by talking about economic pillars that is a work in progress, but I think we're basing a lot of our decisions on. And those are simplicity, trust, token utility, sustainability, and player driven. And today I'll be talking slightly about simplicity. But on the right side, you'll see what these pillars either promote or imply. And I think all of these things are extremely important for the health of the economy, and they will feed into all our other decisions. Mm-hmm. So on simplicity, we just do the basics, is that we want the system to be as simple as possible, but no simpler, which is a near tautology, but I think it's a good one. Mm. This, for example, we can avoid picking winners and losers, because with complexity, you get a lot of levers. You get you can make a lot of minute decisions, and then you risk starting to pick winners and losers, which people generally do not like. They feel it's unfair. And so we're aiming for parsimony without sacrificing functionality. And this is essentially what says that the complexity is not neutral. There's a lot of, the economy becomes extremely complex, very easy to get into hyperinflation territory. So we aim for simplicity. And I like these examples. You can see that with simple rules, information symmetry, you can get extremely complex behavior. And when there are human beings interacting, you will generally get a very complex system. So we will not aim at complexity with the economy, we'll aim at simplicity and allow complexity to emerge. And that fits with the player-driven pillar. Slightly more on this. I said this before just now, but there are also like problems with understanding the system through statistics, because you there's a lot of circular dependence in the economy, and the more levers you have, the harder it will be to determine exactly what is causing what. And we really need to know what's causing the movement in the economy, so we can either avoid doing them again or fix it. And there are also a lot of benefits to simplicity. It's much easier to plan, to see what's going to happen beforehand, and it's much easier to fix mistakes. This usually builds trust, and players have very clear incentives. They also, like, their expectations are more easily formed, so they don't have to worry about a lot of levers that CCP is going to pull. They maybe build their they have some expectations on the future. They build their playstyle around it, and then some change will happen in the economy, and they get furious.
Can't think of a
Take to
time
the
that's
streets.
ever happened before. Not once in the history of any product that we've ever put out.
Yeah. But I would say it's rather a foreseeable thing. But it's just, I think it's mainly a function of needless complexity. And there's a challenge to simplicity, because you don't want to, it's important to say that we're not sacrificing functionality. So the trick is, and this is in all science, physics, everything, mathematics actually, where my background is, it's the biggest thing. You're trying to abstract as much as possible to find out what is at the heart of the problem. And there the trick lies, to make it as simple as possible, but no simpler. And also, like with simplicity, we're encouraging the players to innovate. And I'm really excited. Like what I look forward to most is to see what like the players come up with to induce this complexity, to have this emergent behavior. Instead of it could have the opposite effect. If the system is complex to begin with, it will be much harder to iterate upon it. So I think simplicity is a very important pillar. With that said, let's go to a short talk on the monetary framework. And also it's very relevant, because a lot of questions, I think, although I don't remember them all, had a lot to do with currencies. And EU players seem to be very interested in currencies. These are the exhaustive options. It's the barter system. It's the non-token or non-chain, off-chain single currency, which is the general case for video games. We have a on-chain single currency, or we have multiple currencies. And the multiple currency case is the most popular with like Web3 games, and the single off-chain is the most popular with Web2 games. And we will consider, these are the top contenders, let's say. We have this single currency system, which is only ETH, and we have a dual currency system with ETH and Lux, with a flexible exchange rate, and then we have a pseudo-dual currency system. And people have challenged this analogy, but I think of it like dollars and casino chips. But that does not mean I'm promoting gambling, or it could be theme park tickets, or whatever.
This stream brought to you by FanDuel. Just kidding. For the sake of CCP Legal, that was just a joke. I just realized by saying it, I might cause myself some problems. So that was humor. Moving on.
Flip it.
Please don't.
Yeah. And so, but the idea is that while you're in the theme park or casino, or whatever it is, you just need to hold the in-game currency. And if you're good enough, you can stay in the casino your whole life. You don't need to change it to dollars. You probably can buy beverages and food at the casino, if it's a good casino. And yeah.
Quickly, sorry,
Yeah.
CCP Kalirha. Ultimately, we just want people to play Frontier and enjoy it. And
Yeah,
that is what we're trying to design here. It's just, I want to be able to play eFrontier and enjoy eFrontier, and everything that we're doing is based around that, this core principle.
Yeah. And
How's that water?
when deciding on these, yeah,
Pretty good?
water, yeah,
Hell yeah.
very dark water.
Yeah.
So what we use to separate or decide on these monetary frameworks or currencies systems is these ranking categories. And what you see in the brackets is their relations to the pillars. And the economic stability part, I've gotten some pushback on this word that I tend to use. It's very common in economics, not very common in video game companies. And it's exogenous shock absorption. Just means unexpected events that happen outside of what we are modeling, in this case, eFrontier. It's how the eFrontier economy absorbs these shocks. That is very important for economic stability. Although I want to say that economic stability is not like because if we would only want economic stability, we would just close the game.
Sure.
And we had zero volatility. So it's not like
the most stable system is one that doesn't move, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. So these are not like they're not do not supersede. It's like given that they are same in all other respects, which has less instability would be the way we'd use this. And also, I think the vision conformity part is very important for like that we design the system such that it conforms to the plans, and there's a so-called a time consistent plan to take us from now to the future. A very short aside on the economic analysis part. I think these are just the way I do things, and the way I think economics should be done is that we need to start with equilibrium analysis, find out whether it exists, if so, what it is, and how does it change over time. And then there's dependencies, and the dependencies can take a few forms. You can either think of it as how does one equilibrium depend on another equilibrium, but how does the resulting equilibrium depend on the initial conditions? It's called path dependence of equilibrium. And so that's why it's important that the way we set up the initial conditions will, I think, determine what the equilibrium conditions will be. And when we're done with that, which is rather difficult to do confidently, but then we do the disequilibrium analysis. That just means to see how shocks propagate through the system. And when we have thought deeply about this, then we compare the currency systems and decide. And that's what I have done. This is a fan favorite. Yeah.
Okay.
Is this the simplicity you're talking about?
I was an English major, so I apologize, but oh god. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is actually an extremely simplified version of the economy.
Okay.
And but what I think is good about this is that the simplicity comes when you look at just the faucet and the sinks. And this is where we use the pseudo-dual currency system, and the lenses are priced denominated tokens. It's probably the better way to say it, that the price is denominated in tokens or on-chain currency. Then you can see that it's much easier to control the flow of currencies through the system because we have only one large faucet and one large sink. This is very similar to the central bank type of monetary policy where you have one interest rate. Here, if we fix either the faucet or the sink, we have a single price that determines the total volume of currency in the system. If we go to the dual currency, then we see we need two faucets, and we need to find a way to increase the sinks of the lux here if you compare it to the earlier diagram. And there's I
don't want to interrupt, but just for the sake of terminology, because there are probably people who are watching who don't know, Lux is the frontier equivalent of ISK. It is just it's an in-game currency. It exists only within the game universe. Eve is obviously the token for frontier. These are two different things. They are similar, but they are different. Just so we're on the same page. Continue.
Yeah. So and the monetary policy becomes extremely difficult in this just by that. If you look at the gray box in the middle, that now the exchange rate between Lux and ETH is flexible. So when we adjust the faucets, we actually don't know. It's very difficult to know what is the impact on either the volume of flux or volume of ETH in the economy. So if we go by the simplicity pillar, you would definitely choose the SUTA dual currency instead. And then of course you have all the other, I have this kind of diagrams for all the systems. And this is probably this is the simplest of all. But okay, so this is actually a worse diagram, but I'm gonna take you through it. It's what happens if there's the exchange rate spike in the on-chain currency, ETH, and how it impacts both non-players and players. And this will give us insight into how we should structure the lens pricing and the currency system. Because you see if you look at the arrows going to the non-players first, there is an influx to earn, because now it's more valuable to play the game if you're going to do that, if you're going to play to earn, not to play to have fun. But on the other hand, there's barrier to entry because the tokens are priced, the lenses are priced in tokens. So you need to pay more for the tokens to get in. Well, then you have, you become a player, and the player will either increase their PVE, which means just try to get more feral data, or it will reduce their PVE. And this is determined by the substitution effect and income effect. And the monetary policy is essentially the prices are adjusting the rewards. And the substitution effect and income effect are extremely important in economics, especially when it comes to wages. And there's a very famous labor supply curve that slopes upwards, which means that people with high income, when you raise their wages, they work less. So it's not, well, it is. Most people, like if I told you that if I lower the price of a good, you would think that people would buy more of it, right? That's a substitution effect. So it means that with labor, it is not as simple. So high earners do not increase their labor when they get higher wages. So and we can adjust this effect. We can with using monetary policy, we can adjust how much comes through substitution effect and income effect. And then you can see that most of it, we have sell pressure on almost all sides, except the initial influx of players through the token purchases. So what happens is that you get a spike, token valuation spike, but all the forces are making it depreciate to compensate, which means we have a healthy system that does not have a feedback loop in it. But the big problem here is barrier to entry, because you could have, if the token value spike is large enough, it become impossible for people to buy tokens. So then you use hybrid pricing. So you put a ceiling. That's one solution. There are many solutions, but this is one solution. You put a ceiling on the lens prices. So if the token valuation goes high enough, you just cap it at a certain fiat amount.
Sure.
And what's good about that is that creates arbitrage opportunities, which essentially controls the token valuation spike. So it neutralizes the probability of the token valuation spike becoming high enough for barrier to entry to become an issue will decrease significantly just because of the existence of the ceiling. So yeah, but there's also this new equilibrium. I'm not going to go through that as it's even more complicated. So it's just the result of the system, this token value spike, is a new equilibrium, which depends on a multitude of factors. So a few dangers of creating a currency system. So we just went through token valuation volatility, the barrier to entry, and then there's a death spiral due to high price elasticity of demand. So this is a function of platforms in general, which have network effects. They tend to have a much higher price elasticity of demand, and also the existence of time-rich players. So let's say in certain combinations of currency systems and lens pricing, you can get a situation where a shock, exogenous shock, will increase the price in such a way that time-rich players cannot possibly earn enough within the game. So they will leave, which will decrease the utility for other players, which then might also leave, and then you get this death spiral. So it is critically important to do this correctly. So the problem statement essentially is we want to promote simplicity, token utility, stability, vision conformity, and avoid feedback mechanisms and behavior distortions. And the solution I proposed, at least, we'll see what happens, is that we have a pseudo-currency, a pseudo-dual currency, I should say there, monetary framework with hybrid pricing. It escapes the barrier to entry problem. It's relatively simple. We have the crypto skeptics, which I sympathize with immensely, can play the game and have positive effects on others. It aligns incentives, builds trust, handles depreciation extremely well, because that eventually means that the game is cheaper when the token depreciates, and it conforms to the long run vision. Yeah.
I think that one is one of the important ones. Like, this was brought up a while back, actually, in a Founders Access stream, and I think it's a super elegant solution where if the price craters, then it just makes the barrier for entry into the game much cheaper. It means more people can join the game, which means, and since it has utility, it means that it has a set floor. It can't just crash to completely zero, and more people come in and can start to play. And then as more people start to play, and the game itself gets bigger, then the price will inevitably start to recover in some way. And also, I think it helps us because we can sort of buy up some from the economy to help give things out, to promote content, creators, developers, that kind of stuff, which is a super useful aspect to have.
Yeah, but I want to say this is just on the margins. So these are you're describing marginal users. Marginal users, not in the common parlance. It's like in the economic sense, because people that play the game, there can be extreme volatility in the token valuation, and they have no idea. They can just play the game. I think that is extremely important, that people they don't have to worry about some speculators or whoever wheeling and dealing with an on-chain asset. It does affect them in the sense that it could be there's a slight change in behavior of other players. It's like some activities are more lucrative than others, these kind of things. But that could be of multitude. They don't know if it's a token valuation thing or any other shock. It could literally be like a unemployment shock in Indonesia, or I mean, that might as well have happened.
Sure.
So I believe we have some questions. Is this the time we go to those, CCP Jötunn?
Yes.
I did see someone in Twitch chat actually refer to eFrontier as a PvE game, being player versus economy, and I've written down in my notes to CCP Goodfella, I'm like, that's actually a PvE, player versus environment versus player versus economy. Yeah.
Nice.
Versus server also in some cases. Yeah.
I mean, to CCP Kalirha's point earlier, like getting this right is pivotal, because we want to do this for a long time. EVE Online has been running for over 2 decades now, so that is the ambition of CCP with its games, and that's also why we're showing it now and getting in questions already from the community.
Megashare, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. CCP Goodfella. Megashare in chat just brought up just made an interesting point. Something that we say a lot. I want to make sure it gets repeated everywhere, which is the crypto in games is obviously heavily stigmatized. There are a lot of good reasons for this. I think we can all agree. And then for it to be accepted, it needs to be completely invisible to the average player. Would you say, CCP Kalirha, that this is what we are aiming for?
Yes. I don't think there are very good reasons. I think there are many reasons for why it's stigmatized.
Sure.
I'm not sure they're all very good.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important that we don't force some playstyle. I mean, this is a game. I think the game should come first. I think game design should come first. But we need to structure the economy that a lot of playstyles and especially like he says, the average player should. I'm not going to say like sheltered from it, but
sure.
If he decides that he doesn't want to interact with it, it should not impact. It would, of course, impact probably through like the more we have like smart assemblies and the more we have of those kind of stuff. I mean, it is on chain. You have to interact with the chain at some point, but it's not needed.
Certainly.
But it's a good just topic as well. Like CCP Jötunn, we should just have a technology stream soon for the Twitch site, just to explain the cool things that happens, what we can do using blockchain.
Yeah.
Show hackathon results and all sorts of cool stuff. But like crypto scam, like this is the worst crypto scam in history, if it were one. We have been busting our ass for 3 years now, working on this. So,
yeah, I don't know if people kind of realize typically what the goal of a scam is. The goal of a scam, generally, I'm not saying that I've ever run one before. This is all hypothetical. For legal purposes, CCP legal, please remember, this is all for humor purposes. The goal of a scam, generally, to make money, and that requires, you to not hire nearly as many people as we've hired for this team and worked as much as we have over the last 3 years. So,
yeah, I mean, I've been scammed then as well. I should not have left the central bank.
That's what it was. That's what it was. The scam was specifically against CCP Kalirha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, one of the things I'm excited about, that just to answer that question directly, like some of the things it brings, and I've got a whole presentation on this that perhaps we can do on stream sometime, is if you look at EVE Online and the rise of third-party developers specifically, almost every single group in EVE Online, or even individual players, you're probably using some sort of third-party tool that interacts with the EVE API in some way. In fact, right now there's around 3,500 different applications hitting the EVE Online API almost 1 billion times a day. Which is an insane number of requests. And small alliances, big alliances, individuals, corps, killboards, PIFA, like EVE Mon, JEVE Assets, Janus, all these different types of tools that we all use every day. They pull this API, and this is the reason why these big groups are able to organize. They run using external third-party tools that are developed by players, whether you're using things like Alliance Auth, for example, to manage your alliance, and then using plugins to control your Discord roles, all achieved with a read-only system. And then you take that and you allow people to build tools, but also have that aspect to write into the game in a permissionless way that we can't stop. We can't say, hey, no, you can't come in and change this. If you want to do it and you have the ability to do it, then you can come in and build these things that impact the way you play the game. The closest example is probably things like Wormhole Space in EVE Online, simply because Wormhole Space was almost completely uncolonizable when it was built, but people have developed tools, mappers, systems that allow them to actually live in that space. You can't really live in Wormhole Space without party tools. So think of it like that. That's how I like to think of it, at least.
Yes, think about Wormhole Space, friends. The best space in EVE Online.
Wormhole Space, except 20,000 systems, and it's total hell death.
It is several times. We're getting a little bit off track, but it's fine. This is okay.
Yeah.
A couple times.
My last soapbox, I'll say, is like people talk occasionally about the differences, and I like to think that if you really step back and have a look at it, EVE Online is this like grand, ridiculous space opera. It's a game of excess, wealth, like the universe.
Bright lights.
there's trillions of civilians that live there. Capsuleers are basically demigods. They're deathless and things. It is a true like futuristic excess space opera, and then eFrontier is taking that, flipping upside down, and it is just this desolate wasteland where civilization used to exist. It is not for the faint of heart. It's a survival game where you're like picking through the wreckages of like ancient structures, looking for like one particular small item or some things to help you survive and try and rebuild the core of civilization itself.
Hell yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead. We got about 25 minutes left allocated, and I have questions from the community. Okay, so these questions were submitted by our founders. Third time, shout out founders. Appreciate you guys doing this. So we asked, in general, what people had questions about with regards to the frontier economy. I think we probably touched on some of these already, but we're going to go through them. There are a ton, so we're not going to get to everything. I can guarantee it. And thankfully... you know, a lot of you asked kind of the same thing, so we were able to simplify these down. So let's start out with the very first one. This one comes to us from Failtigan, Varen, Lorgain, 3bola, wild, Hookie Jugger, and Grunt. And the question was, will there be player-created currencies, and will they replace Lux over time? How would the currency exchange work in that case?
Yeah. So there will definitely be player-created currencies. And that's one of the things I was talking about, by the innovation and the simplicity. I really wanted to be player-created currencies. I'm very excited actually to see which currency dominates and why. I think the how the currency exchange would work. I'm hopeful that the players would basically solve that themselves. They whether that will be through smart contracts or how they will do it. And that's the part of the innovation part and the player-driven part. I'm actually confident that they will do as good or a better job than we could do. So I think it's just
Sure.
I think it's part of the long-term view as well.
I think from my perspective, there is just we're trying our best to, with everything we do at Frontier, to go to first principles and science. And to quote here, like Stefan is talking legit, we're trying to do a simple system and then complexity can emerge. And there's a law called Gall's law. The complex system that works is like always found to have been derived from a simpler system that worked. You can never start out with a complex system just designed from scratch.
And this is something that you could, for example, so eFrontier, as I mentioned, like way more star systems, even like over 120,000, and many of them, most of them, basically all of them are disconnected from the others. And maybe you want to build up your gate network, but you want to let other people use it. And it's sort of like, imagine if you're driving around in toll roads in let's just say United States of America. You're driving around toll roads in the United States of America. You pay with your US dollar to go through the toll roads, and this is fine. And then you drive into Canada, and then suddenly you need to pay with Canadian dollars because there's different people operating the roads. So you can think of it sort of like that, except you can't really go to America and like blow up their toll booth because you don't like paying and then replace them with your Canadian toll booth. That might cause some problems. But in eFrontier, you certainly could.
Maybe. Who can say? I have a follow-up question. So when we're talking about token generation and players being able to create currency, what kind of control are players going to have about their, like, what kind of control they're going to have about when and how they issue tokens? Like, this is typically whenever this happens, it's like a whole big event. It's planned out well in advance. If we're allowing players to do that, are there any kind of restrictions on that? Are there any kind of throttles that we have to like have our hand on?
No, I think actually it's very important that they have full control of the issuance. I think it basically isn't their money if they don't control the issuance. So the part here is like how they can link it to when it's issued, if they can link it to in-game events and that kind of stuff. That is, I would say, like in the long run. So we need to, like in a lot of these questions, we need to actually think about it. Is it a short-term question, medium run, or long-term? So for the long term, just probably any event in the world they can link their issuance to.
Sure.
In the short term, it depends on what we are linking to the chain. And there is a delicate balance I think on deciding what to be on chain and what to be off chain.
But like now in the spirit of we're doing this with the people, you are already able in our environment to create your own tribe token and experiment with it and give us feedback on it all. So people can right now, like even CCP Goodfella, the notoriously bad engineer, is able to create the Goodfella King.
That's the nature
currency.
of permissionless environments like this. You can make your own things. And the other cool thing as well is, let's say, I don't know, let's say CCP Goodfellow makes Enyo coin, and he mints it and says anyone can go through the gates if you have those coins. And then he sells them to you, or maybe he trades them to you for resources that he needs. He's like, hey, I need this particular type of resource. I'll give it to you for that. That only works as long as like he's controlling those gates, and you might have these things and they might plummet to zero because he decides that he's going to take all these gates down and head off. So maybe he's going to give you some sort of like guarantee, and then it becomes this trust thing. And sometimes the trust could be in like assets in games. Sometimes it could just be like, hey, you're my friend, I'll let you in. And we do this on a day-to-day basis in many corporations and even line run, for example, SRP programs. Those essentially function very similar, where you're basing it on trust of a few people to hand out things. And you can basically automate this, decentralize this, and let other people trust you by seeing the rules that you're enforcing.
Sure. There was one more follow-up to that one, just very quick. And this, I guess, is probably for CCP Kalirha. How do player-created custom currencies impact trade efficiency and market competition in eFrontier? In other words, I guess, do we foresee a future where some currencies just body out other currencies?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's how you want to work. So actually, there will definitely be, the more that the player-created currencies will dominate the CCP-created currencies, you will probably get some initially decrease in trade efficiency. But usually what happens is that when you have these kind of increased costs, the goal of the issuer, and this also has to do with firms, is just to lower the cost, lower the cost for everyone. And there are a few things, of course, it's not the only thing, but the tribe that can lower the cost the most probably will have an upper hand. So I'm really looking forward to all these like competitions. How will they compete at? Will they compete at cost savings? Will they compete at what they link their, what's the backing of their currencies? What services the currencies provide? And I think actually it will give us a lot of information, or like it'll be a nice study to see what currencies dominate and what are their properties for just real life. For, let's say, of course, this is not new because there have been a lot of like free banking episodes throughout history. But in our like modern world, there are like other currencies that are not issued by governments, and we could maybe predict which currencies will dominate based on this experiment that happens in eFrontier.
Sick as hell. I want to do the next question, especially because this is one that I think you said should have been on in your hiring process. This question should have been asked. So shout out to whoever hired CCP Kalirha for not coming up with this question. Kind of lame. And the question is, how would you introduce a new currency in a small barter-based clan economy?
I think CCP Overload should go first.
I mean, Overload rapidly Googling barter.
I'm just making sure my microphone is muted.
Yeah, because the barter system is actually very interesting in many ways. So I've told a lot of people this story. It's about a prisoner of war camp. It's one of my favorite economic papers. And they had prisoners from many different countries. And because the Frenchmen got more bread than the Englishmen, they got more of something else. And they want to barter. So they came up with some way of bartering. some medium of exchange. And then you need to think about like what is the property of a good medium of exchange. I mean, for like the first medium of exchange needs to be something that is in demand. It needs to be something that some people want, and but it needs to be a lot of it, because it's very difficult, because you need to have it needs to be the lowest denomination.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but it can't be created easily. So you have a very strange situation. But in like prisons and prisoner war camps, they can't create anything. So cigarettes were very good there. But this is the same principle that works in just old economies or historical economies.
Yeah.
But then you go to like but there's an evolution to it. They see like it's difficult for the poet to get into a cinema. It's very extremely difficult to convince the front doorman that to listen to his poetry so I can watch Dune 2.
Sure.
So we want to create some system that but when it's small, it's probably not worth the cost. So you would probably just keep with the. I know that there's some history of using shells. People used
caps in Fallout. Bottle caps.
Yeah. But that's just then there's no production in Fallout. The problem is that if it's easy to produce, then you get this huge inflation problem, and people don't know the worth of their cap that they're holding. So, but I mean, then you get an evolution, and you try to find. We found a way of minting through gold and metals. And now we are like in this digital era that we can use like cryptography and stuff like that. So that's at least how I would start. I would start with just using what is at hand. I think it would not be worth the cost to try to create a currency.
Let's move right ahead. The next one came to us from that last question was from Knox, by the way. Shout out to Knox. Next one was from Grunt. Wants to know, how does the integration of blockchain tech and the real-world value of these EVE tokens affect the in-game inflation and marketability in Frontier? I think you may have already touched on this, but if you want to simplify it real quick.
Yeah, so I think I have touched on this, but I think what the blockchain enables is like there's a enforcement of time-dependent arrangements has historically been extremely difficult, and many religions actually have usury sin.
Sure.
So this has also been very controversial. But the problem is usually that enforcement is difficult, and so historically only like governments have been the lenders. But if you want to have a thriving lending system, you need some enforcement and you need collateral. And I think one of the reasons, like for EVE Online, why it was extremely difficult to have a banking system, is it was almost impossible to enforce violations to the contracts. But the good thing about blockchain is we can automate that process with smart contracts, and you can introduce collateral. Like in all theory of lending, collateral is the single most important thing to make a lending market work.
Sure.
We can do that in the blockchain, and this is like a domino effect, because as soon you have established that culture, which is like inherited from a blockchain technology, you get a lot of financial instruments, and a lot of complexity rises from that. I think people underestimate the complexity just by this, that in the financial system inside the game that will emerge just by introducing this ability to write smart contracts that depend on actions in the game.
Sure. Hell yeah. I'm down for that. All right, next one up. I like this question a lot because I'm familiar with all these words in here. This one comes from Micro Nova. Wants to know, can you discuss your goals for how the markets will look in regards to NPC orders and other supports 6 months after launch? What would be ideal 1 year on, and will NPC orders be able to affect the blockchain?
Yes, on the last question.
Okay, sure. But the other questions before that as well, you know that.
Yeah, the view is that so according to the pillar, player-driven pillar, my view at least is that this should be player-driven market. That we want the players to be the arbiters of price and dominance in the market.
Yeah, I think to add color commentary to the Economist, here I explains it very succinctly, and I totally agree. This is a player-driven game and will be. NPC buy and sell orders do help with the cold start problem of an economy.
Sure.
So that is the purpose of them, and then the players, as they get better at scale at crafting items and trading, they will easily be able to undercut the NPCs and take over the world itself. This is just a way to get the economy going.
Okay. So it's just
from my point of view, I'm sorry, on the NPC thing, it's about also data generation for understanding. Gotcha. So when there will be adjustment, for example, in resource distribution or whatever, any adjustment to the world, we want to know what will happen beforehand. So we need to make sure that data is good, essentially. That's the NPC's purpose.
Let's move to the next one. Actually, I changed my mind because you've already talked about the next one. Let's see here. Okay, this is actually a great question because this is something that people talk a lot with regards to Eve. This question comes from Vicaris, Grunt, and yeah, just those two. Wants to know, how can the game design prevent economic stagnation and address wealth inequality in a player-driven market where some players have years of accumulated assets? Will decay have effect on large stacks over time? And this may be more of a game design question too, but I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are.
Yeah. So on the wealth inequality question, I think we should not have an opinion on what is the correct distribution of wealth.
Sure.
At least I don't know the optimal distribution of wealth. I will probably not know it in the future as well. But there is something to be said about like if people are hoard, so the wealth, if it's in currencies or if it's in currency, you can inflate it away. But if it is in items, you can't. So there has to be. But I mean, there is digital physics in the game. That's one of the pillar of the game design. So there should be costs to things like storing. There is a cost to at least smart storage. So my point is that it is a game design thing, but it should go hand. I mean, I tend to dislike this distinction between game design and economics. It goes hand in hand. You can't do one without the other.
Sure. So I guess the question then is more like, what is your wealth in, right? Because if your wealth is in something stable, like either a currency or in
well, the example is probably more apt to use would be if you want to use real life stuff and say like you can keep your wealth pretty stable if you invest it into gold.
Sure.
Because gold is kind of a natural asset, but gold has a physical property that it exists, which is useful.
Right.
And because it exists, it means it has to be somewhere. And I mean, if you want to buy a bar gold bullion and stick it under your pillow, then you're welcome to do so. You will pay no storage costs. Might be a bit uncomfortable when you're trying to sleep at night. But then you take a huge risk that someone just comes in and nicks your gold.
Sure.
Most people who invest in gold are going to be putting it into, for example, like strong storage places in banks, and of course, then the bank is going to pay for security. That is then enforced by like police, private security forces, things like that. That possession is 9/10 of the law.
Sure.
So if you want to like have people, you could build a system up in Frontier where you are basically the bank storing the gold, and people can invest in that. And of course, you have to then be responsible for protecting it. People have to trust you, and it could be various agreements that can be coded in such a way that you can't kind of just pull it out from underneath someone.
Sure.
But that's where we get this sort of like connection to real life. Like, I think that's an important way to think of it.
I think it's a super good overload.
Real
Quickly, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, CCP Overload. If you don't mind, do me a real quick favor. Just do this real fast, and then like pull your hand back. Okay, never mind. You're good. Okay, we're good. Go ahead, CCP Goodfella.
He just wanted to touch you.
Yeah. That's what it was. Nailed it.
But CCP Overload, if you quickly talk about also fuel in relation to this and upkeep. Well.
Yeah, so
I don't
everything has an energy cost in general. Like when I bought this drink, someone had to manufacture it. That cost power, it cost resources to manufacture, it cost people labor, and then of course I took it and I drank it. Everything in life, we can't just create things. So by building the frontier on what we call digital physics, it means that everything has some sort of energy cost.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, then the more things you do, the bigger the production is. If I'm just making a little drink in my house, then my energy costs are very low. But if I'm building a factory to produce tens of millions of these things to sell on the global market, then of course the cost is going to go up, but the cost per unit is going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
This is physics. You can't break the laws of physics.
Sure.
So by enshrining these digital physics rules into the game itself, we can make sure that things make sense. I can't just to buy this, someone had to ship it to this building, right? And that's also additional costs. Like, but I can't just manufacture this and then teleport it to someone else. That would save me tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
So in eFrontier, one of the examples of digital physics, and this is a very, very simple one, is that items have locality. So if I manufacture build something over here, I'm going to have to sell it over there, and that means I have to actually transport it. And of course, you might want to build your war rig like you're in Mad Max with a bunch of guys on motorbikes trying to raid you because you're heading off down to Bullet Farm to just get some resources with your water. Like, that's essentially the sort of the same analogy. They are following the rules of physics. They can't just teleport the water and the bullets back and forward. They have to physically get.
So I guess the question at one point mentions decay, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past too, and it's not something we've touched on in a while. But I guess the question would be, to go back to use your example, putting your wealth in gold versus putting your wealth in bananas, right? Like, if you have all of your wealth in gold, you can feel fairly confident that wealth is going to last for a while. But if you put your wealth in bananas, I mean, it's a short wealth, right? So, like, are there going to be things in the game, or do you foresee systems in the game where depending on what it is, certain things may decay over time, become less valuable over time, not because of any economic factors, but because of like their natural state of this is what this is, and over time it goes bad.
Absolutely. I think I don't have any concrete examples for eFrontier, but I mean, use petrol as an example. You see all these post-apocalyptic films where they're all just driving around like normal, where in fact, petrol goes bad within 2 years. So, jump forward a couple of years, none of the cars are going to run.
Sure.
Like, those guys Walking Dead are stuffed. So that is a decaying resource, where other things are going to continue to be stable for a very long time. Some things, in fact, will appreciate in value over time due to rarity. That's just natural. They don't make it anymore. Like, try and buy like a really old vintage camera, for example, that is not made in the same way, then it's going to cost a lot more than buying a replica of it today.
I think bottle of wine is also a pretty good example.
Bottle of wine is a great example.
Yeah.
It objectively gets worse, but it holds its value and goes up because people collect them. And you can use this argument for almost any item that exists on this green earth.
Just to be very clear, you CCP Overload did just say that wine gets worse over time.
Objectively, if you buy like a $20,000 bottle of wine from 1930 and open it, first of all, you've wasted $20,000. But most of likely, 99%, it is ruined.
France is in shambles.
Yeah.
Just absolutely in shambles.
But to make it also clear for the chat, then the financial advice from CCP Jötunn was indeed invest in bananas. Did
you know there's a certain amount of bananas that if you ate enough of them, you would die from radiation poisoning? It's a true fact.
There's a lot of bananas.
Potassium is very mildly radioactive. Listen, okay, so here's the long and short of this. We're out of time. We've answered 4 questions and there were like 30 of them, so we're not going to get through the rest. What I
It's
am
almost
going
if
to
the
do,
economy is complex. I'm
Yeah.
sure we can have CCP Kalirha make some more diagrams.
and a couple.
Please no.
I just very quickly. A couple people in chat have said like, "Oh, well, what's the point of this? Why you make the economy so complicated?" And I want you to know, I hear you. I am a simple man. I press button and get excited when things go boom. Right? There is a game like this game, like many other games, EVE Online specifically, is a game made of games, and one of those games is the most interactive, most dynamic market simulator that we can come up with. That is, I think we can all agree, all 3 of us. Anybody show of hands? Anybody disagree with it? We're trying to make a very cool, exciting market simulator. Nobody, any issue with that? Okay, so I've said it. Now it's canon.
We're trying to create a virtual world. Virtual world has an economy.
Sure.
That's one of the parts in it.
I rarely go to the bank if I can avoid it. Me personally, I have an app that has a big green button on it that says "Give the money away," and I press the button and the money goes away. That's all I have to do to interact with it. And if you, like me, are a simple man or woman, or whoever you are, and you don't want to do anything other than press that button, then by God, you can press that button.
Yeah, I want to say though, okay, so the word economy is often used like it's a financial system or something. I mean, the economics is just people trying to, I mean, they have wants.
Sure.
They want something, and there's scarcity. And it just happens that trading is a very efficient way of getting what you want and trying to, I mean, not manipulating scarcity, but you're trying to work your way around it.
Sure.
And then we have technological advances that makes it that you need less stuff to make more stuff. And that's just how the world works. It's not that the economy is something separate.
Right.
It's intrinsic.
Exactly, and I think it's a super good point. And like what we're trying to do is just to create a framework where people can build out their base in space, attack others, create world domination plans, and failure and death. That is ultimately what we're trying to do.
Hell yeah. Okay. Seriously, this time though, I promise we're wrapping this up. Okay, so these extra questions that we have, there were like, again, almost 30 of them. I'm going to hound poor CCP. He doesn't know this yet. I'm going to hound poor CCP Kalirha until he answers all of them, and then we can give them to the founders. So if you want to hear those questions answered, founders, don't worry. I got you, baby. I know where this man works. The island, listen, Iceland's not that big. I can just find him. This is very simple. Okay, he can't run. Outside the city, it's dark and cold. It's not going to work out. So we're going to get that taken care of for founders. If you want to join that founder program, by the way, our marketing people would be very upset at me if I didn't do this, but efrontier.com/founder access. Check it out. If you want to be part of the founder program, great. If not, I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. Okay. But we're trying to do something really cool, trying to do some fun stuff. If you think it sounds fun or cool or interesting or what, or maybe just want to hear more of CCP Overload's accent, this place to do it. You know, bada bing, bada boom. So, last thing before we go, this is big news, big news. We are amending our NDA going forward. You are hearing it now for the first time. The NDA for eFrontier is being amended. Going forward, you are freely able to talk as much as you want about eFrontier, with 2 exceptions. Those being, if you're in the founder program and you've heard something that's coming up but isn't in the game yet, you can't talk about that. And you can't post any videos or screenshots of the game client right now. It's just not quite ready yet for like public consumption. We're still building some stuff. It's a work in progress. I mean, you don't want to show off the house when it's just boards and stones, and you got to see the vision, right? But outside of that, the NDA is being amended. I'll have an updated, more extensive kind of document about it here shortly. That's going to go out in our Discord. So if you're in the Discord, you can check that out. Of course, you can ask us any questions. Ping CCP Overload specifically if you have those questions. I hear he loves getting pings at 0300 UTC. You should do that. That's great use of your time. Other than that, any last second thoughts? I know it's a huge thing. I just dropped it here at the very end, but like, yeah, it's like Christmas for me. I don't know what else to tell you.
Today, the Keeper started a new cycle
Hell yeah.
on the frontier, so this is a great time to join.
Yeah.
Yep. I would say my final thing is that so this particular stream was specifically about the economy and economic factors and stuff, but our goal is to make a game where you can just come and play and have fun. Like at the end of the day, that's the most important part. Now, CCP Goodfella hit on this earlier on. For some of you, the fun is coming in and blowing other people up and stealing their lunch money. For other people, it's building lots of spaceships. For other people, it is playing like the economic powerhouse. There's a ton of different ways to play Eve Frontier.
Oh, yeah.
And to do that, we want to make it a game you want to play. And as part of that, there's a huge amount of complexity in taking some of this stuff and making it actually appear very simple, so that you can play the game without having to like go through these really complicated interactions that we're talking about today. You can just play the game like you're playing with your friends, you're undocking your cool spaceships, and then blowing other people up. Like that's the goal. So that's what I'll leave you with.
Yeah, no, great point, CCP Overload, absolutely. And before you think like, oh, why are they spending all of their time and all their resources, all these people working on this economic thing? CCP Kalirha is just one dude, guys, and he just got here, so like, calm down.
He doesn't even know yet. He has to do this by himself. We're going to lock him in.
He's alone.
It's the scam.
Yeah, for him specifically. But we have a lot of other cool stuff, guys, coming up. Again, we are at the beginning of Cycle 2. We hit 2.0 today. We're still here somehow. We're making this thing happen. So far, things are good. Looking forward to the next couple of weeks and months as we head towards some bigger stuff happening later on this year. So until then, joining me, of course, has been CCP Goodfella, CCP Kalirha, and CCP Overload. I have been, as always, CCP Jötunn. Thank you so much for joining us here for this live stream. We'll be back some point in the future to do more. These are fun, and everybody seems to like them, so we're going to do that. And in the meantime, we'll see you on the Frontier, Riders. Have a lovely afternoon. We'll see you later. Goodbye.
See you later.
Bye.